podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello everyone and welcome to How Are the Podcast. It's Gav and you join us for another roundup of, well, I would say it's a transfer roundup, but it's a news roundup, transfer roundup, madness roundup. I mean, it's probably been 24 hours since I last recorded a podcast, trying to bring you up to date on the news. And in that 24-hour period, about 1 million things have happened. So clearly Sunderland are not waiting around this summer and they're going to give us loads to talk about every day, which is good if you like podcasts and you like talking about Sunderland, which we do. So lots to talk about today. Got two fine young gentlemen with me to chat all about it and some different voices this week. So you're not just hearing Johnny Blue rabble on as he normally does. Sorry, Johnny. Johnny was actually asked to come on tonight and he's on the piss. So enjoy your drink, Johnny. First up, we have Craig Chapman with us. Hello, mate.
Good evening. How are you? You all right?
Yes, a bit sweaty. It's warm, isn't it?
It's very warm.
You were talking.
Really bad data report.
Yes, we have, and it's going to get warmer. So if we're going to keep up this daily podcast thing, I think by the weekend I'll be melting into my chair. We'll all be topless. We'll all be sat here naked, probably, and it might suit the other man on the call, who I think quite likes to sit topless, and it used to be a bit of a thing, this, with his mic getting caught in his chest hair. It's Bomber. Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. I've never had an introduction such as that before.
Yeah. Big behind the curtain.
Firmly T-shirts on now after the dramatics of having that one podcast cancelled as a result of my scratchy hair.
Yeah, your hairy chest. So as I said, lads, lots to talk about, and it's weird because, like I said, I literally recorded a day ago, and there was 1 million things to talk about then. And fast forward 24 hours, there's millions of things to talk about again. So we might as well start right from the top, which, you know, the big story today, I guess, has been the confirmation that Chemsdine Talbi's transfer has been completed. Club have posted all their interviews. Christian Speakman's had his say. Pictures of him looking dapper in his new kit with his freshly cut hair, looking very suave in his blue Sunderland away kit. Does old Chemsdine. But yeah, he's had his say on the club website, and it's the usual stuff you get from a new player, really. But we will read it out. He said, "It's the biggest and best league in the world, so I'm really looking forward to playing in the Premier League. It was a good project, a good team, a really exciting team with lots of young players, so it motivated me to come here." They asked him about the journey. He said, "It's been a really long trip today, but I'm really excited to play for this club, and I really appreciate being here." He was asked about the Champions League, of which he's played 11 times and scored twice, and became the fourth youngest player to net a brace in the Champions League last season when he scored twice against Atalanta. And he said, "I played in the Champions League, one of the biggest leagues in the world, so I will try to do my best to show how players need to adapt to a difficult or really stressful game. I like 1-against-1 situations, I like to score goals, and I like to give assists." So, Craig, what do you think of this fella? Then you don't know out about him, as you admitted to me off air, as we all don't know out about him. So nobody listening to this is going to be sitting pretending they do know about him. So I guess at this stage, when we read these things, when we see these feeds, these names that get linked with us, it's just excitement, really, isn't it, for me? It is for me, anyways. I see us spending 20-odd million. I just think, this is we're back in the big time now.
Yeah. I mean, I would wager a lot of our listeners and fan base alike will probably not have a clue who the majority of these players are. We get the text messages come through and the notifications off the socials every day, and it's always exciting when you bring somebody in because it's that mystery of, you know, how are they going to contribute? But besides that, it also is demonstrating that we've got a succession plan in place, because obviously we have, it's worth noting, lost two really important players. But that being said, that's no longer the talking point, because it seems to be every day at the moment that we are bringing in young, hungry players. And as you've obviously alluded to in that statement, they seem to be really keen to join us, which is only a bonus. We talk about experience. Obviously, a lot of people discuss age as being one of the key attributes in that whole sort of criteria. But here we are bringing a lad in who's played in the Champions League. He's played in a side that's won his own domestic league. So, again, it should only put him in a good stead. And look, you go off the limited YouTube compilations. I know I'm kind of turning the clock back, how we normally form an opinion on these players. But he looks to have something about him, doesn't he? He looks absolutely rapid. And we really get up for those sort of players, don't we? As soon as they get on the ball, it really gets the crowd up at the stadium light. So I think it's a player who hopefully will do well for us. But yeah, it's more mystery at the moment, but very, very exciting when you see us bringing all of these players in.
Yeah, it's a far cry, Bomber, from no disrespect to these particular players, by the way, but when we're signing players with pure out-and-out pace, it's a far cry from the 5 or 6 years ago when we had Chris Maguire and George Honeyman playing on the wing for us in the playoff final, isn't it? I think we're now looking at just to go back to what I said just before Craig spoke there. It's going to take me some getting used to this, like just seeing someone spend 20-25 million on like an unproven 20-year-old. It's like, God, we're back in the big time, like I said.
It's ultimate real life Football Manager, isn't it? I mean, you load up the next installment of Football Manager, you try and find these rising stars from all the European leagues, and it looks like we're doing that in real life. And for me, it doesn't feel real. It's exciting. And I think I've said on a previous pod that I much prefer not paying £20 million for a player that I've never heard of, because I don't profess to know the ins and outs and who's good and who's not in the Belgian league and everything else. But I'd much rather see us spend 5 lots of 20 million on young, exciting players that we don't really know and are excited to see, rather than, no disrespect, re-signing Jack Clark, for example, because he got relegated with Ipswich, or taking players from Southampton or Leicester or Ipswich just because they've played in the Premier League or in a relegated team and are looking to stay in the Premier League. That's completely the wrong way about it. Loads of teams that have come up have done that, not worked. This is fresh, it's exciting, and I can't wait to see what they can do on the pitch. With regards to Talbi, similar to Craig and yourself, I've never even heard of the guy until this news broke. And I've not watched YouTube clips or anything like that, but I've got two quotes that I can give you that just make me, out of all the signings so far, I think most excited about him over any of the other signings that we've done so far. So firstly, there's an Instagram page, Rising Ballers, 2.8 million followers, that look to find the next generation of young talent. And they've, about 4 or 5 hours ago, posted something on their feed to say Sunderland have just won the transfer window. If you don't know Chemsdine Talbi, you soon will. The 20-year-old has joined the club on a 5-year deal from Club Brugge. Just a few months ago, he was winning the Belgian Premier League and picking up Man of the Match awards in the Champions League. So yeah, they can't speak highly enough, and they're the sort of people who, 10 years ago would have been raving about Mbappe being the next big thing, etc. And then the other one, I was doing a bit of research on Transfermarkt, and Bart Tamsin, who's their Belgian area manager, so the specialist in kind of the Belgian league, says, personally, I think he, together with Konstantinos Koretsas, is the best talent currently in Belgium. Since his performance in the first leg against Atalanta and becoming man of the match, not a day has gone by without him being featured in the Belgian newspapers. He's played on the right side, but in my opinion would be a little better if he came in from the left. Everybody agrees his best is yet to come, and he's destined to be at a top European club at some point in his career. So, he's probably, if that stands to reason, we'll probably get a good 3 years out of him, and he'll be off for mega bucks if he continues that development. So yeah, there was a big clamour as well for him to pledge his allegiance to the Belgian national team, the full squad as well. So there's a lot of pressure for him to get a full cap and kind of get him tied down to Belgium. So everybody's excited about him, and that's a train I can get on board.
Yeah, I just want to go back to your pronunciation of Bruges there. Brugge.
That's a bit dodgy, wasn't it?
Club Brugge. You will not lecture me on a pronunciation.
I will because it takes the heat off me when people say shit like that. Chemsdine as well.
You take that up with Clive Tildesley, because that's how he pronounced it.
We'll just talk about Bomber saying he hasn't heard anything about him, and then drops all of these sources and quotes on him. Like, you've done your homework.
In the last 15 minutes, mate.
Very well researched.
Yeah, speaking of very well researched, here's what Christian Speakman had to say about him. Said, our momentum and story are powerful, and I think players of Chemsdine's, whatever Bomber said, calibre, who are in high demand, are excited by the prospect of playing for Sunderland FC. It's a testament to our recent past and immediate future that he feels this that whoever wrote that for the club, come on, that doesn't make sense. That he feels we are the right club for his next step. There's my editorial hat going on there. That needs correcting. Anyways, predominantly playing wide right. You've got me second guess now. You say his name now. Chemsdine. I can't remember. I got the proper.
I think it's
explanation of this.
Chem. It would be. Sounds to me like Chemsdine.
Chemsdine excels in duels and possesses elite physical qualities, and he also has flexibility to play across the front line. That's an interesting point, by the way. Predominantly playing wide right, because when I did the interview the other day with Elijah, he said he felt his best position was on the left, but clearly the club see him as a right side player. Our supporters will rightly be excited to see him play, and we are delighted to welcome him to Sunderland. So yes, another one. We've talked a little bit about him this week on various podcasts. Like I say, I did an interview with a Belgian football video scout, Eliza Michels, and if anybody has missed that, make sure you go back and catch up on that. You can learn a little bit more about this guy. But yeah, sounds very, very exciting, and let's see what he's got about him in pre-season, I guess. Anyways, another winger and a new story to chat about. Simon Adingra, the Brighton and Hove Albion winger. That one came out the blue. We were told by Keith Downey this morning, I think, that somebody who had not been previously linked to Sunderland was on his way in, and that got everybody guessing on social media. And then a couple of hours later, as he did break the story that Simon Adingra from Brighton was on his way to Sunderland to have talks and complete a medical. The fee is believed to be around 20 million. That's 18.5 million plus add-ons. And yet he did they actually showed footage of him on Sky getting off the plane, arriving in Ponteland Airport, and heading towards Sunderland to do his bit. And it was then confirmed later in the evening by Fabrizio Romano that everything was done pretty much. Just needs to have a medical, and that one will be signed off. So Simon Adingra, a 23, I think, year old winger who plays for the Ivory Coast, has got a lot of experience playing for Brighton in the Premier League and in the Europa League too. Somebody who I think is going to excite fans, might frustrate us from time to time. We've got a little chat coming up with Brighton fan Ryan Adsett from Talk Seagulls, which is a podcast website, in a few minutes or so, but I'll just grab your thoughts, gents, on this one before we do that. This one came out of nowhere, Bomber, didn't it? Bit of excitement and a Premier League experienced player, which is something we've not signed really to date. I say experienced, he's still a kid, relatively speaking, but somebody who's got plenty of experience playing for Brighton in the Premier League, and another big money move and another winger. I mean, I keep saying this, but it's just exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's key. That it kind of one that came out of nowhere, which, you know, for the amount of players that I think we must be well over 100 now in terms of the names of the players that we've been linked with, and then all of a sudden this comes out and it's signed and sealed and done before we even realise that we're linked with him. He's the first player that we've signed or signing that I've actually heard of. He's the first player that probably fans will know a little bit about, and I think it's key that I think he's 23. Even at 23, he's got 60 Premier League appearances under his belt. You know, although he was largely behind Matoma last season, he still managed to get 29 appearances in the Premier League, 31 the season before that. And, you know, he's young enough to further his development. I just find it, again, it's like almost like a pinch yourself moment. You know, Brighton tend to be the feeder club for Chelsea, for Manchester City, for those sorts of players. And then we're taking players off of them. And it's a funny one because for all intents and purposes, I think we aspire to be, certainly from a model perspective, we aspire to be Brighton. You know, we want to be the team that's developing all these class young players, selling them on for huge profits, and just, you know, being a production line of exciting young talent that just keeps reaping profit for us. And as we move to like solidify our status in the Premier League and then try and move up the table. So I think it's fascinating that we're taking young talent from Brighton. There might be a slight alarm bell that, you know, why are Brighton happy to let him go? And it's not to a Chelsea or to a Man City or to an Arsenal. But, you know, we're not, for all intents and purposes, we're not competing with Brighton next season. Brighton are going to be, you know, top 7, top 8 again. It'd be great if we were up there, but really we're probably looking to finish as high up the bottom half of the table as we possibly can. So I don't have a problem with it. Again, one that I'm excited and with other young players by his side, I'm sure he can develop and do really well for us.
Yeah, I mean, it again, Craig, just somebody who I can't claim to know a great deal about, but I do take heart from the fact that, this player has played in the Premier League and we've clearly been after him for a little while now. I mean, it'll come out when the deal's actually announced officially. I'm sure Speakman will say we've been tracking him for ages, but it was reported, wasn't it, back in January that we tried to get him as part of the Watson deal then. So whilst it did come out of nowhere, I'm not massively surprised, and it does. It fills me with a lot of hope that we've obviously done our homework on him, and it's somebody we know well. And another point which hasn't been really raised is that he spent a season out on loan with Union in Belgium, who obviously we watched very closely because we've just signed one of their players in Noah Siddiqui. So, we've clearly done our homework on this player, and as I said, we were about to find out a little bit more about him, but just grab your thoughts on this one. I mean, again, keep using this word exciting, but it is.
Yeah, I suppose just first of all, really picking up on Bomber's final point there about obviously him perhaps not getting the game time at Brighton. I wouldn't necessarily be discouraged by that because quite rightly, as he's pointed out, ours and Brighton's needs are certainly greatly differed at the moment and going into this season. That being said, obviously it is still quite a coup for us because, as you say, we've been chasing after him for a little while. Obviously, and again, it's another big chunk of money to lay down for him, but it's all about having that experience once again in the Premier League. So he's not going to be a rabbit in the headlights. From the limited footage I have seen of him, again, I've got to be honest, it's only very limited. He does look to have that cutting edge in front of goal. Again, it looks like somebody who will trouble defenders. And that's really what we need to sort of maximise upon this season. I'm a big fan of both Mundle and Patrick Roberts, but I think once you remove the sentimental sort of view from the whole conversation, really, we do really need to improve in respect of all areas on the attacking front. So to have people like that coming in, hopefully they can create chances, hopefully they can take chances, because like I say, we haven't scored an awful lot from the wing in the past few seasons. But again, time will only tell. He's a young player, 23. Obviously, it perhaps is a little bit old for us at the present moment, but he's got obviously a long time here. You would assume, obviously, by the sort of handing out of the 5-year deals. So it's you can only imagine that these players are coming with the aspirations of saying, "Listen, we're coming to start. They're coming to offer a huge competitive edge," and I think that's the most important thing for me. Is that we do seem to be very, very proactive in this window. We've had a really short period of time coming off the back of the playoffs, and you did perhaps have that worry, that apprehension, thinking, that we will be behind Leeds and Burnley, and ultimately both those clubs at the moment are actually looking at us thinking, Christ, how are they getting that level of business done? So I think, again, it's another positive step in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, let's get the expert view then from Ryan Adsett of Talk Seagulls. I spoke to him earlier this evening and grabbed his thoughts on what we can expect from Simon Adingra and just generally what he thinks about the deal and whether it'll work out. So here it is. Take it away, Ryan. Right, so I'm joined by Ryan Adsett, who is from the Talk Seagulls website and podcast. Is that right? Did I get that bit right?
Got it right.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. There we go. I'm always worried that I don't get these things right. How are you doing, Ryan? Are we good?
Yeah, good. It's good to be on. It's a weird one for the fan bases, because I've had Sunderland fans being like, "Oh, he's absolute groundbreaker." Remembering the old sort of Simon, and then I think a lot of Brighton fans, he's very, as you said, Marmite amongst the fan base. It should be a good conversation.
Yeah. I mean, it's not it's not sort of groundbreaking news essentially to us because he was linked to us in January. I know Sunderland had tried previously to bring him to the club, and as part of the Watson deal, which never came off in January, and it felt a bit fanciful at the time that we were trying to include him in any sort of deal. But the interest is obviously long standing, so it's not about you, but it's not much of a surprise that we've actually gone back in for him.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think especially with the Watson business, on our point of view, obviously taking a left winger. I think Adingra was sort of inevitable to leave this season. I think maybe last season wasn't his best, to be honest. He was a bit in and out. And I think the trouble is, because we've got a player of the level of Karu Mitoma, it makes whoever's going to be next up is going to just not look good enough. And I think Adingra has sort of got that unfortunate thing of when Mitoma's missing, he's then got to fill his boots, which he can't do. And it's I think the writing was on the wall for him. But hopefully, from a Brighton fan point of view, it means we keep Karu, which would be great news for us.
Yeah, when you're talking about one of the best wide players in the league, in front of you, well, from Adingra's point of view, I think he's 23-year-old. It's clear he hasn't got like a long-term future with Brighton. Certainly isn't going to start as many games as he would probably like at this age. So a move to another Premier League club's probably the right step from now, I would say.
I think so, yeah. I'm quite happy for him in a weird way. I'd like to see him do well there. I think we've said so many times in the last couple of seasons where the promoted 3 go straight back down, and it's quite nice to see Sunderland doing some business and trying to just stay up, because if it was to happen again, I would kind of hate it a little bit to see the bottom 3 go straight back down again, because you'd start thinking, well, when's this ever going to end? You know, I actually was quite happy you guys come up in the sense that, one, it's a different away day, because I've never done Stadium of Light. The last time we played there was like 2004, so I was 3. And as well, it's just quite nice to see a different side that's not necessarily got the parachute payments of recent years.
Yeah, I think the good thing about our business this summer, it feels quite ambitious. I mean, it's strange to Sunderland fans to see us spending 20, 25, 30 million on players as we've already done. And I mean, we were right at the start of July, so who knows where the rest of the window is going to go. But I think we've spelled out our ambition quite early, as I said, and that's probably quite attractive to a player like Adingra. I mean, I read the piece on your website, which you didn't write, somebody else wrote. But there was a bit in there where the writer had said he was a little bit surprised that he came to Sunderland, and maybe, I don't know what the hint was there, maybe that he was capable of a move somewhere, that a team that might not be fighting against relegation, because let's be honest, we're going to be trying not to go down this season. Does that sort of come in line with your thoughts on where you thought he might go next?
I understand the narrative of it in sense of he could play in Europe. I think is he could be in that maybe mid-table and above slot, I'd say, which is probably a good thing for a team like yourselves. But I probably would actually argue with Marshall's piece a little bit there, and I'd say I quite like the idea of him being that big fish, because that's one thing he's not going to have here. And as I said, trying to replace Mitoma is very, very difficult. It's impossible by his standards, and I think that's his trouble, is that next step down. I think being in a team where he can then be that bigger player, he kind of had to do it 2 seasons ago, and that's where he almost broke out too soon for his own good. He was only 21. Mitoma got a back injury, which was coincidentally when Mason Holgate decided to absolutely crunch him. But no one ever said that it was definitely Mason Holgate. But for that period of time, Adingra was effectively our starting winger. And he wasn't ready, but he had such a good season. Then he won the AFCON. And it was like, okay, he's almost broken out. But I think if you're to then watch him, you're almost, it's like your brain's doing tricks on you. You're seeing a player that's breaking out while saying, I don't think he's good enough to be at the level he's playing at. And then I think last season he kind of got exposed for that a little bit and sort of getting shrugged off the ball quite easily. He wasn't really taking on players as successfully, really. He was often played out on the right side, where obviously Mitoma was taken over the left when he was back from injury. So he's nowhere near as effective off that right side. And I think, as I said, the writing was on the wall for him in that sense. And maybe that lack of versatility perhaps doesn't see him get a move to a mid-table and above team.
Yeah, you mentioned about him maybe being a big fish, and that's probably accurate. You know, he's going to have competition. We've signed another winger from Belgium who's predominantly going to play off the right hand side. On the left hand side, we've got Romain Mundle, who's probably one of our best players, but has never played Premier League football. So he is going to get that opportunity, and you would imagine Sunderland have sold him the dream. I just wanted to ask you about the fee, because the reported fee from Keith Downey at Sky Sports was 20.5 million, which was 18 million plus 2.5 million in add-ons. Do you think that seems like a fair amount for him?
I'm happy with it, I think.
Yeah.
It depends on how the season goes. But I think I'm happy with it in the sense of it's a squad player for us. So you're like, if you're getting 20 million from squad players, I guess the thing is that Brighton must be looking at is they're looking at Tommy Watson and clearly happy enough to say Adingra can go, and that's what is quite surprising, probably on my point of view, is I'm thinking, well, you've effectively played half of his fee on Tommy Watson. So you've really got Adingra for a 10 million. And then maybe it doesn't quite look as good business on our point of view as perhaps it could have done. I guess we must really rate Watson. I've heard some very good things that he's impressing in training already in pre-season, but I don't want to say yes, it's a good piece of business too early, in the sense that if he was to have a great season, then Tommy Watson was to have an average season, or we were to let go of Mitoma, it would all of a sudden look a little bit different on that point of view.
Yeah, I get what you mean by that. It's a bit difficult to judge, isn't it? I'm still trying to get my head around fees, and like 20.5 million just is, when you actually think about that is a ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah.
But that's just what like a normal Premier League footballer costs these days. And we've not been in the Premier League.
Right? It's like, you're not even looking at big players.
That's it. And we've not been in the Premier League for 8 years. And when we were in the Premier League 8 years ago, 10 million was a lot of money, So things have changed so much, and we're going to have to try and get our heads around it. Just to try and grab your thoughts on him as a player, you've kind of touched on it a little bit there. But what sort of wide player is he? Because like I said before, we've already got Romain Mundle. Romain Mundle's a really powerful, quite defence-minded winger. He's very good going forward, likes to cut inside on his right foot and shoot. Can go down the outside too with his left, but works very hard going back. What kind of winger is Adingra then? Is he similar, or is he a little bit different? Is he a bit of a maverick?
Technically, I'd probably call him a bit of a traditional winger, in the sense that he likes to cut inside. He would like to try and take on players. I would say that his attributes kind of counteract what he tries to do when he does cut inside, because of how easily he gets shrugged off the ball. It can be quite frustrating to watch, especially when he's coming inside, and you've got to think the fullbacks at the top level are so much better. So it can be very frustrating. You can see a sort of obvious pass inside, or you could see maybe even a run down the touchline. He doesn't sort of get that bit, and that can be frustrating. He sort of is, no, I'm going to cut in, and you think it's quite one-dimensional at times. But when it's effective, I would urge your fans to watch a goal back when he scored against Sheffield United for us. Not away, but at home. He scored away as well. But it was such a good goal. He sort of played a little 1-2, cut through a team, and that in itself, there you can see what he could do. And at times it was so effective. He was effective in the Europa League for us, doing a similar sort of action. But again, that was probably that build-up play, that little 1-2s inside players. I would, as I say, when I say traditional winger, I just mean that sort of raw burst of pace. He's very good. He's good-ish with the ball at his feet. I'd say sometimes it looks like he's about to give the ball away. And the close control is maybe not quite what you would hope it to be, but with a few little sort of polishing touches, I think he is a very solid Premier League footballer.
Is he, you've just said that he's not particularly physical, but does he work hard? Is he a grafter?
Yeah, he works hard. I think he sort of had to, with where we were as a club last season. We just got into Europe, and this is what I'll always give him so much credit for, is how hard he worked to get there, because, as I said, he shouldn't have been playing that amount of games. He was the player that was a bit part player. He just come back from loan from USG. The fans' hopes for him were high, but we thought, give him time. Mitoma's injury changed that whole give him time thing, and we were like, no, he's got to play, I think, 30 or 31 games he played that season. And it was just harsh on him, to be honest. And you could tell it was harsh on him by the end of the season, but he did it. And I think that's what I'd give him credit for, is the fact that he did do that, and he did impress. He got an all right number of goals and assists to his name, and he was an entertainer at times. The AFCON winner I think he came back as the Simon Adingra that was now a man, and I think that was quite nice to see.
Yeah, I did read that. Did he win Young Player of the tournament?
Yeah, he was really good in it as well.
Yeah. That's one thing we're a little bit worried about. We just seem to be signing every player who's going to be representing some nation at the African Cup of Nations in January. I think every single signing has been an African signing so far. So he only adds to that list. I suppose the club mustn't be too bothered about that. But yeah, what would you say the biggest, the biggest strengths in his game? You mentioned a couple of times there, he's 1-2s, he's raw bursts of pace and stuff. But when Sunderland fans get to see him for the first time in a proper game, maybe not pre-season, what are the maybe 2-3 things straight away which might make people sit up and go, all right, he's a good player, this lad?
Transitions, I think on the sort of burst of pace thing, as I say, he's very good. When he does get around players, he is very exciting to watch. It's just that sort of final ball sometimes you think could have gone a bit sooner. But again, probably with an opportunity where he's in a team where he's now the focal point, I think he'll enjoy that. So maybe you could see a little bit more confidence when it comes to taking on players. You're not constantly looking over your shoulder at someone that's going to overtake you in the first 11. So I think in terms of, I'd say close control, sort of that quick turn, he's quite good. Decent turn of pace. I think them sort of quick, cute passes, he's quite nice with. He linked up really well with Ansu Fati when we had him on loan from Barca in the Europa League. And they formed like a really nice partnership in the, I think we were at Amsterdam, and it was probably one of my best personal memories. I mean, a Brighton fan talking about Amsterdam, you know what I mean? It's just mental. And that for me was always will come to mind for Adingra, was that performance he put in was fantastic. And it was all them little sort of combinations. I think that's what you like to see from him. So from my memory, when under De Zerbi, that's exactly what I think of Adingra. I think of them little cute passes. If you can get him doing that and then sort of getting him on the counter attack, I think you'll see a nice little player.
I'm just trying to piece together when you talk and sort of where he fits in with Sunderland, really. And we had a player quite similar to that in Amad Diallo a couple of seasons ago.
Yes.
Who was probably at his best when he was linking up with, Patrick Roberts in our team, playing those little 1-2s and cutting teams open that way. So maybe that's what they're looking towards, because
that's quite a nice, quite a nice comparison, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to ask you that actually. Who, if you were going to compare him to anybody, who would come to mind aside from Diallo? I mentioned him, obviously.
Yeah. To be fair, a lightweight version of. Do you remember when we had Anthony Knockaert?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
He reminds me of him, a bit faster than him because Knockaert wasn't the fastest. Minte, but if he was, Minte's a lot better than him. That's the trouble. So I wouldn't say that he was a. I feel like I'm being too harsh on him here by saying this, and I don't want. I promise you, I don't want to be, because I do like him, but there are so many times where I just think of these frustrating moments. And I'm like, Simon, just pass the ball, man, and that's so many times you can think of. I think comparison wise, I'll probably call him our little Knockaert regen, maybe. But he's a very his own type of player. He's very electric when he wants to be, but it's just I constantly think of those little step overs that he likes to try and do, and then he'll probably give the ball away. But at least he's done it, you know what I mean? And I think that's very similar to Adingra. It's just he's an unpolished winger. I think he needs that time to embed into a squad that's going to get the best out of him and play to his strengths, because ultimately I don't think we've done that for him last season, and perhaps that's a fault of our own as well.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the word unpolished there, because that tends to be the type of player we pick up. We will try and grab a player when and I'm thinking maybe that's why this deal works, because he's maybe just in a moment where he needs to maybe change environment, go somewhere with maybe a different coach. Sunderland being a team who aren't going to naturally be competing for a top 8 finish as Brighton are, but still standards are very, very high, and we have a young squad. I'm thinking that our coach, Regis Labrise, he's probably his unique selling point is his ability to work with young players. And I think that's possibly a big reason why we've brought him to the club. What do you think would, if you were a scout and you were looking at Simon Adingra, what would you be looking at and going, I can do something with him there?
Yeah, it's definitely that final product. It's definitely that final product. If you can get that mastered, we saw it on occasions the season before, really, because if we class in last season as this season, whatever, funny point in the season. But the De Zerbi season, we saw it. We could see the cute volleys, the little sort of touches in behind. We knew what he was capable of. But I think just because of the level that we were at the time, it was just a little bit harsh on him. And Hertzler was such a change in style from De Zerbi. He's gone from this possession-based, we're literally playing from the back. And we completely scrapped that. And all of a sudden we're going quite physical, intensity is the whole thing behind Hertzler's philosophy. And we're trying to outnumber in masses. We're putting probably 5 or 6 up front on the counter. And Adingra just didn't really keep up with that. You put in players like Jorginho, Welbeck, very physical players. João Pedro, obviously, who's just gone to Chelsea, Mitoma, Minte. They're very intense players. And we'd try and outnumber that. I think Adingra, where we'd probably try and do that outnumber, especially if it's a low block, it just wasn't effective enough to try and, make that little burst of magic. Whereas I think if you're looking at a more of a possession-based or a, transition-based style, perhaps you might be able to see a little bit more from him. But I think if you can try and help him be that player that can pick that pass or can make that moment, as we saw quite rightly, and I'll again urge you to watch it, that moment against Manchester United for Brighton last season, right at the beginning, and João Pedro scored, Adingra made that. He come off the bench, he put the ball across, it was a beautifully weighted pass. He can do it. It's just about, trying to get that magic a little bit more regularly. As I say, probably that, as you say, that change in environment will help him. Yeah. And he is an exciting player. On his day, he is a mid-table Premier League player.
I always ask this question when we get people on to talk about players, and I'm going to ask you it now. If there are any Sunderland fans listening to this who have maybe heard what you've had to say and are a bit like, oh, I'm not sure about this one, don't really know if I like what he's had to say there, or they've maybe just, made their own judgment based on what they've seen. What would you say to them? What would you say to anybody who's maybe not entirely convinced about this one?
Trust him. See what happens. Give it till January and then maybe get me back on the episode and we'll see where he is. I think get him in the gym and get him eating some more calories. I think then you might be all right. Maybe he'll settle a little bit more. I wouldn't say this is a bad signing at all. I actually think it's if you had to give him a graded signing, I'm giving you a solid B here. He's a Premier League footballer that's played, 60 odd games for us or whatever. He's a very consistent player in the sense that at least that he's going to try. He's a hard worker. I think as you say, he's only young. There's a high ceiling there to an extent. I think from a team that's just been promoted, I wouldn't complain, to be honest. And I think if you were to rewind the clock when we were in 2017, our initial recruitment was horrendous and there was no Premier League experience in that squad. So I think I would be quite happy with the signing. He's a young player. Give him time and see what happens.
Well, that's a great place to end it off, I think, Ryan. Thank you very much for your time. And if anybody wants to catch up with your stuff, like I said, I mentioned before, you've got some stuff on the website about him, which Sunderland fans might like to read. Where can they find you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say follow a Brighton thing, but probably don't because I'd just be a bit weird. If you want to follow Brighton, maybe you could watch Watson stuff, maybe. But I mean, I wouldn't blame you if you don't want to. So don't have to worry about that. But you can follow me on Ryan Adsett on Twitter or just TSR Football, which is my sort of general main football stuff on Instagram. So stay away from the Brighton stuff. You're a Sunderland fan. Enjoy Sunderland. Don't look at Brighton stuff. It'd be weird.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll catch back up during the season when we play each other as well. So thank you very, very much for joining us.
Yeah, looking forward to that as well. Yeah, speak soon. Bye-bye.
That was Ryan Adsett from Talk Seagulls, and as he said, you can get him on @Ryan Adsett on Twitter and talkseagulls.com. And he did say, why would you want to listen to a Brighton podcast? But still, I think, if you want to keep up with Tommy Watson or just what's going on at another club in the Premier League, then why not check them out? Anyway, so we'll move on slightly then, since we've had a lot of Adingra chat, and we'll probably come on to him again later in the week, I imagine, once the deal's confirmed and there's more to talk about. So we will move on to another massive bit of news, which, again, they just keep coming at Sunderland. The fact that we have appointed 3 new people to Regis Labrisse's backroom staff. The names of these fine gentlemen. The first one, which was leaked last week, and we actually talked about it a little on the pod, Luciano Vulcano, has joined the club in the position of assistant head coach, subject to international clearance, but apparently he's already working there, so maybe they're just getting him in early. He's also been joined by assistant coach Isidre Ramon Madia, again subject to international clearance. I was laughing at my pronunciation of that one. Isidre, come on. Does anyone want to have another go at that? I'm sure it's Isidre.
No, I think I was laughing because I think you probably spot on.
It really hurt us to get it out though. Like I had to force that word out my mouth.
Isidre Ramon Madia.
That's better.
Yeah.
Do you know what I listen to the TalkSport clips of the week, and they always take the piss out of Alan Brazil for like the way he pronounces things, and I've always laughed at it. And I realised earlier today I was thinking about it. So I'm as bad as Alan Brazil.
You're Alan Brazil, basically. Is what you're saying.
I am. Yeah.
I'm sure you get the last one though, mate. The last one's nice and easy for you.
Yeah, Neil Cutler, goalkeeping coach. Neil Cutler has joined the football club. Also, so 3 new coaches. We're really expanding that team. And in terms of their background, Isidre will lead on opposition analysis and has previously worked for, drum roll please, I mean there's a million clubs here, but Barcelona, Valencia, Nice, Paris Saint-Germain, the Spanish national team, the Iraqi national team, randomly, and also Watford. When I looked into it, he also worked for Watford at one stage, maybe 8 or 9 years ago. Neil Cutler will lead the club's goalkeeping programme and take responsibility for developing first-team shot stoppers, and has previously worked for West Brom, Villa and Wolves in the Midlands in the Premier League. And Alessandro Bacciarini, who moved up to that position of assistant coach last season, has now been made permanent as assistant coach and will focus primarily on defensive shape and individual development plans. And that also includes Michael Proctor and Pedro Ribeiro, who will continue to undertake assistant coach roles. So we basically have 8-9 assistant coaches who all have different jobs, but it's something we've talked about a little bit this week, Craig. I just think it's important, isn't it? When you move into the Premier League, you act like a Premier League club. You don't come up and you try and do things the way you've always done it in the AFL. When you come into the Premier League, your budget expands, your wage bill expands, your ability to, become I say act like a big club, but that's what big clubs have. You see the Man City bench, and I think they've got a team bus just for their coaching staff and stuff, haven't they, Man City? I'm not saying it's on that level, but obviously we're placing more focus on what you need when you're in the Premier League, which is specialists in every single area of the coaching department. And I don't know about you, but I can't see any problem with any of this, really. It all makes a lot of sense.
No, I think perhaps, again, it just shows that we're organised, really. And I think it's quite telling that the word to continuously use is about being competitive. And I genuinely think that's the aspirations. I think we're certainly under no illusion. It's going to be so tough this season. And I know people can tend to get a little bit carried away with the signings that we're making. But listen, I think realistically, if somebody offers us 17th now, we'll take it. We'll snap the hands off for it. But I think that sort of conversation might not be happening within the walls of the club. I genuinely think that with the signings they're making and with the conversations that they're having with the staff and everything like that, I genuinely do believe that they'll be aiming higher. I think they do have that confidence in their own sort of abilities, and certainly over the course of the past few years, if you think they've basically took this football club off its deathbed and now have us in such a healthy position where we're actually now able to take the director of football away from Roma, and obviously we're bringing in these coaches who've worked for Barcelona and things like that. So like I say, I mean, this in itself is equally as important to bringing in the players, because it's vital, obviously, that we get the right people, as proven by bringing in Regis last season, opposed to obviously say people like Michael Beale. You get the right people in the right environment, and then, listen, it's a recipe for success.
Yeah, interesting as well, Bomber. We've been linked with Sam Johnston a little bit in the press in the last few days, and Neil Cutler is apparently somebody who's very close to Sam Johnson and actually worked with him at West Brom and Wolves, I think. So I don't know, might be putting 2 and 2 together and making 5 there, but just interesting appointments. And, it wouldn't be the first time that Sunderland have brought people in who know staff already at the club. I mean, we've done that, so it wouldn't be a massive surprise to see someone like Sam Johnson come along. But yeah, those appointments just make a lot of sense, don't they?
Yeah, and there is an argument to be made that these appointments are almost as exciting, if not more exciting, than the in terms of our intent for the season anyway, than the players we're signing. Because when, all right, it might go under the radar because I don't follow those teams, but when Southampton, Leicester, Ipswich went up last season, there was no talk about how they've extended their backroom staff and added more coaches and brought people in who have worked at Barcelona and the Spanish national team and PSG. So, it's all right bringing the players in and good quality players, but you need good quality coaches and good quality backroom staff to be able to get the best out of them. So it looks like we're very much, giving this chance and this shot at the Premier League the best possible chance that we can. I think it's Cutler appointment is quite interesting. Like you said, with the Sam Johnston links, the coaching appointment wouldn't have been done overnight, so they would have had numerous discussions with him. And Johnston's probably come out and as one in the conversation to say, look, if you can get him, he's one I'd really have a look at. I think it's also interesting for Matty Young, considering he was all the work that he's done with the England under-20s as a goalkeeping coach. So in terms of looking after young goalkeepers at that level, bringing them through. So I think that's an interesting one. But again, like I've said with the players, just the names of the teams with which we're taking people from, or where their experience lies. Like, when was the last time you heard this, like the Spanish national team and PSG and Barcelona talked about in the same breath as Sunderland? It is craziness. And yeah, that doesn't necessarily translate and say that they're going to be successes here. But I mean, it's the best possible footing and the best possible foundations to breed success, isn't it?
Yeah, and Christian Speakman's also been chatting just to kind of bring all this together, transfer window and staff and all the rest of it. He did a little interview with the club pitch side in training today. Don't know if you've seen it, but he talked about pre-season. He said there's always a special buzz when you come back for the first week of pre-season. For the club to be back in the Premier League and for everyone to have that feeling that we are so close to Premier League games is really exciting for everybody. And I thought this bit was really good. He said, we want to be decisive in the transfer market. We had a short space of time between the playoff final and the players returning, and now there's a short space of time before the games start. To give ourselves the best chance of being really competitive, we wanted to try and get the group organised early, and we're delighted to get the boys through the door in the first week. So, I mean, it's been obvious, Craig, hasn't it? We've, with the amount of business we've done early, it's kind of like, I used this phrase on a pod the other day. It's almost like a switch has been flicked and we've went into Premier League mode. Like, they had a plan ready to go, either if we got promoted or we didn't, pretty much at full time at Wembley. It was like, this is right. Okay, here we go. All these staff are coming in. Put the bids in for these 7 or 8 players. It does feel that way because none of this feels rushed. It feels all very, all very obvious and methodic, and like we meant to do this as has been intended. And it's kind of like the plans. I'm not saying it's been a success, but when you mentioned before about like Leeds and Burnley fans maybe looking at what we're doing, thinking, bloody hell, what's going on at Sunderland? It does feel like this plan was just ready to go, and Speakman's obviously out and about showing his face because it's a bit of a power play, isn't it? Sunderland Sporting Director talking about all the good stuff we've already done.
Yeah, and I think really all of us need to embrace this, every single bit of positivity around the club at the minute, because as a fan base, when we swallow that up, and we take that into the stands, then it's only going to really, prove to be extra supportive for us going into the season. And I think you're obviously talking about the plans and how that switch has been flicked. If you're not prepared, then you're not going to succeed at all. You look back at last season, you look at Southampton, for example, and the business that they'd done. They never ever looked anywhere near ready for any aspect of the season. Every single week, it was so demoralising for them. They didn't do any decent business. You could probably argue the same for Leicester as well. Ipswich, I think, just threw a lot of money hoping it would just stick with, the kind of the Championship All-Stars, which is obviously an approach which is a little bit old-fashioned, a little bit old school, perhaps what we've done under Roy Keane once upon a time. But, I mean, this really does sort of scream that we've had our homework done for a long time. And I think, obviously, with these sort of moves, they're not just impromptu. Perhaps they are in respect of if the opportunity comes, then we'll snatch on it. For example, how we did with Romain Mundle that time. But we obviously do keep a lot of focus on these players. Obviously, this lad coming in from Brighton, we've targeted, as you've said, for a long time. So we're just striking when we can. We're not sort of, sitting on our hands and humming and hawing. Because we mentioned Leeds, if you'll believe the rumours, we've took 2 of their targets away from midfield straight away, and that's just because we've been so proactive straight away. And yeah, basically, like I say, I mean, in years gone by, you would always hear, you've got to wait for the Premier League clubs to get their business done, and then everything else falls in order. And it seems that we've really sort of set the trend and the momentum away already by doing such business already. Obviously, they go to Portugal next week. It's an excellent opportunity for them all to get together and have a good team building session, get to know all the new lads. even gives an opportunity for some of the players who were obviously out on loan as well, of like a final chance. People like Nectar Triantis.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a big pre-season. Obviously, I know we've got 9 games, but I think the opportunity's there for anybody who wants to be successful with Sunderland.
Yeah, he went on to say we are scaling up in several areas across the club, which is what we just talked about with the, it's not just the training facilities in the stadium, but it's literally scaling up the off-field coaching structure, the business side of the football operation. He said it's really important that we are Premier League ready and for us to have a sustainable model in the Premier League. The executive function is no different. I am excited for Flo, who was obviously Florent Gisolfi, nearly forgot his name, to be coming on board. I think he enhances our capability to make good decisions in the transfer market and around performance. I am really looking forward to working with him. All positive, isn't it, Bomber? I mean, not many things to be complaining about at the minute. And,
no,
Christian Speakman, somebody who got a lot of stick at times last year and pretty much every year he's been here, really. Someone I've always been quite supportive of, but, I think I said this before, but if I was him, I would be quite smug at the minute.
Yeah,
and he's had a big say in all of this.
Yeah, he's got every right to be. Like you said, there's been a lot of quite unfair and quite unnecessary criticism, if we're being perfectly frank. I know that might be a little bit revisionist now that we're in the Premier League and it's kind of mission accomplished in terms of getting out of the Championship. But yeah, if I was him, I'd probably be sat there kind of just nodding to myself going, yeah, okay, well, any opportunity I'm going to be confident and I'm going to have a bit of a I told you so attitude towards it.
Yeah.
And that's his right. And I back him. I mean, far be it. He'll have to fall a long way for me to start criticising him after everything that he's got right. Yeah, okay, a couple of signings haven't quite gone right. You think of likes of Rusin, for example, but, for every Rusin, there's an Enzo Lafay. So I've not got a bad word to say about him. I didn't really criticise him beforehand, to be honest, because I kind of like to think that I saw a bit of a bigger picture. But I think out of his whole statement that you've read out there, the most telling thing for me is he's used the phrase to be competitive, not to stay in the league. Yeah. He wants to be competitive in the league. That's our mission statement, is to be competitive in the Premier League. And he's not said we want to stay up. Yeah. So that tells you where the club is aiming. We're aiming for a mid-table finish. And if we fall short, we'll finish 14th, 15th. We might even finish 17th. But we're certainly aiming to be better than at least half the teams in the league. And our transfer business and our coaching, the expansion of our coaching staff and backroom staff and executive staff screams mid-table at this point of time. Anyway, without having seen any of them play and see how they fit in, etc., it screams of a team that wants bigger and better things next season than 17th place.
Yeah, it's all ambitious, and that's why not just Sunderland fans are talking about what we're doing, and that's why we're back here every day with more stuff to talk about than probably any other fan base has had to talk about all summer, because we are just so busy and active. A couple of other little bits to round off on. Just thought it was good to see Ben Middlemass, Timia, Tutierov and Ethan Moore had signed their deals. It was on the retained list, I think, which came out at the end of the season, that those players were in discussions over new contracts, and it's good to see them extend the stay. Particularly for me, Ben Middlemass looks a really good player, and it's going to be tough for any young player to break in when we're in the Premier League, but I think that enhanced reputation of Sunderland being a good club for young players coming through, giving chances to young players, being a Premier League club, will get good loan moves for some of these lads. And just a little plug, if anybody missed it, we did a pod earlier in the week going through the squad, me, Bomber and Johnny, working out who would go where and stuff. So if you haven't heard that yet, you might want to catch up on it, because some of these players may feature. And last but certainly not least, don't know if anybody else caught this, but Jordan Henderson has left Ajax on a free transfer, and he's somebody we've talked about on a few pods over the summer. Do you think there's a chance, lads, that we might sign him? I don't know. I think it's more of a romantic thought that we might.
I genuinely think we've possibly moved past him, to be perfectly honest. With the signings that we've made already and the other people that we're linked about, we're not hearing Jordan Henderson to Sunderland anymore. And like I said, the romantic in me would love to see him back in a Sunderland shirt for one or two more seasons. But genuinely, if the likes of Habib Diarra and the others that we've signed or will sign between now and the end of August, I genuinely think we've probably moved past him. And I can't believe that I'm saying that, but I think we have.
You're nodding away there, Craig. Do you agree?
I would personally rather see Dan Neil be more of a success over the course of the next few seasons than bring Jordan Henderson back. I've got nothing against him personally, but I think, like Bomber says, obviously, I think we have moved past that. If it doesn't happen now, it never will happen. But I think obviously there is a lot of mitigating things in there as well. He'll be on massive wages, which would probably still exceed everybody else. I know we've probably increased that, what we are prepared to pay out, quite significantly this window, but no, not for me. Like I say, I think maybe our hands are a bit burnt from bringing back Defoe, and I don't think it always works as well. And I think obviously as a fan base, whilst there is a bit of romanticism about it, I think the likes of Chemsdine Speakman, they probably don't buy into that aspect of it. I think they look at things a bit more sort of I don't know, without Sunderland tinted glasses on, so to speak. So I just can't see it happening.
Well, I look forward to welcoming you both back when we sign them, and I get you on for the reaction pod for that one. You totally change your tune.
He'd be more. Like, I would welcome him back with open arms, mate. I'm just like, my opinion is that it probably won't happen because we've signed a lot of very promising young centre midfielders that we'd like probably would want to develop more than giving Jordan Henderson one more dance.
I still think we could do with that experience in the team. I wouldn't mind him back, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I think it would hurt, wouldn't it, if he was in another Premier League team shirt next season? Because that's what Paul Joyce, who brought the story, said. Jordan Henderson to leave Ajax. He has not taken up an option to extend his contract. Interest from clubs in England and in Europe, so we'll see where he lands. I think if there was half a chance, I think Sunderland would take him.
I think what I would say, though, in respect of obviously him being linked, obviously, Sam Johnson was mentioned earlier as well. I think that they've probably earned the right, the football club, to basically say, listen, like we trust who you bring in. I know some have not worked out in recent windows, the likes of Jan Paveda and things like that, but they still have largely been a hell of a lot better, a lot more favourable. So I think whoever they do bring in, they'll be welcomed in, they'll get a chance. But for the minute, at least, I still can't see Henderson coming in.
No, well, we'll leave it there, lads. And unless Sunderland have signed another 3 players while we've been recording and we forgot to talk about it, that can wait for tomorrow. It's getting late. Yeah, just leaving it to say thank you very much, Craig. Been great.
Cheers, thank you.
Yes, and thank you to Bomber once again. No wild opinions today, mate. No top 10 lists for you to read.
No, everyone will be pleased to know. And I've not had as many pelters as I thought on the socials as a result of that, despite you outing my Twitter handle as well. I think people just heard us laughing at you and found it funny more than anything. Oh, so it was sympathy more than anything. Then for me.
That's it.
Yeah, lost my damn mind. Pleasure as always, mate.
Yeah, and thank you to the listeners. We are here every single day at Howie the Podcast and rotereport.sbnation.com. Make sure you get subscribed. Make sure you check the website every day. Follow us on whatever social media platform you prefer. We are on all of them, I think, pretty much. Apart from that random one that Donald Trump created, which I don't know the name of. Truthful, we're not on that one. But we're pretty much everywhere else. So if you want to catch us, you can wherever you tend to lurk on your mobile phone when you should be working and whatever. We've got pods coming out the wazoo. We've got plenty coming up this week. We've got a preview tomorrow with Mark Carruthers, who is a local football non-league expert reporter, writes for the Shields Gazette, amongst others. He is coming on to chat about South Shields and Gateshead ahead of the double header on Saturday. So if you're heading to either of those games, or you're maybe just going to follow along on the club website, then make sure you're listening to that. But we've got plenty coming over the weekend, so it should be good. We will see you on the next one. Catch you later.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.